Hello and happy Arbor Week! This week is all about celebrating the trees around us. And so I thought it'd be wonderful to go on a nature walk with you. Hopefully after you watch this video, you'll be able to go outside and notice the things that I'm pointing out, and you should be able to show other people and do a nature walk with other people and teach them too. So it's a beautiful day, and so let's get outside. Come on! With trees, we can tell their age by their bark. And so this one is super rough, and so sometimes that means that the tree is really old. And this is definitely the case with this one. So opposite to that big old tree, we have here a nice new one, a nice young tree, and we can see that its bark is way smoother and there's a lot less imperfection. So we can see the age. Sometimes we have smaller trees that are really old, and so it doesn't always tell us about the height, so we can look at the bark to see what the age of the tree is instead. Now this is one of my favorite trees on this walk that I go on here, and it is a dogwood tree. And what's so cool about dogwood trees is that they're basically red. So that's pretty sweet, and it's a really easy way for you to figure out and identify what a dogwood is. They have such beautiful red bark that's so smooth, and that's pretty sweet.
This cut is fresh.
These really tall trees are balsam poplar trees, and we know that because we can look at the bark. And in balsam poplar trees, they have really smooth white bark at the top, and then as they go steadily lower, you can see that it kind of transitions into that gray-brown bark that's a bit more rough. Also, you can notice that there's horizontal lines on the bark, and then it turns to vertical. And sometimes that's good to see as well. So another way that bark can help us to get to know trees around us is by looking. We can tell how much a tree has grown in a year. So here we know that trees grow more in the winter than they actually do in the summer, because in the summer there's a lot more energy going to growing the leaves and the flowers and the fruit on trees. But in the winter we can tell because we can look at something called bud scars. And so obviously these are the buds, but if we look down a twig and a branch on a tree all the way down, we can see really intense lines, and it gets really rough at one part of the tree branch. And these are bud scars, and that's where the branch had ended the winter or the summer before, and then as it grew, it broke through that, leaving scarring or this rough spot, and it grew through that. So this tree we can see has grown this much, which is maybe like half a foot, maybe around, I don't know, but it's grown that much in a year, which is pretty cool. Then we can look down and try and find the next bud scar, which is right, it looks like it's down here, that would grow an awful lot. So we know that this tree is decently healthy and is growing quite a bit. So another really cool way that we can get to know the trees, and you might have heard about this one already, but it is by looking at tree stumps and tree rings. Now, it's pretty well known that if you look at tree stumps and count the rings, you'll know how old they are, but how does that actually work? Well, what happens is, like what I said earlier, is that in the winter, trees grow faster, and in the summer, they grow slower. And when they grow slower, their matter is compressed more, and it makes darker. It is darker, and it makes these rings. So every summer, when you see dark rings, that means that was a summer, and that means that you can count those and count each year. and each summer that it has been alive. Now this is an old stump, so it's harder to see, but I obviously was not going to cut down a tree, so we'll go with this one. If you can look here, you can see the rings though still, all the way around here. And there's different ways that we can observe these rings, and it tells us about the life of the tree. Now if the rings are closer together, so let's see here, over here they get a bit closer together by the outside. If the rings are closer together, that means that there has been less food or the tree is less healthy. Wider apart growth means that it's grown more and it's more healthy. If it has a scarring here, it means that sometimes it means that it was part of a forest fire and there was burnt scarring, but I don't think that's the case here. There also can mean that different animals or insects have kind of infested it and has affected it here. So we can see that there's a lot of different animals or bugs that have been living inside and have kind of used the tree as a home. So we can see this tree has really helped out its environment and different things in nature by letting them live in it. And yeah, there'll be other things. I'll post a picture of other things that you can learn about with tree branches just by looking at their stumps. Wow, that was a fun nature walk. Thank you for coming along with me. And now can you go outside and can you find some trees and try and find the scar buds and see how tall that tree has grown in a year? Can you go find a stump and see if you can learn about the tree by reading the different lines on the stump? Can you figure out what trees are around you and identify what types of tree it is? These are all awesome ways to celebrate trees this week. So I will have a link to a nice photo identification guide that will help you with different trees around you. And I look forward to hearing about it. Your last challenge, as we're all together, your last challenge is to try and look around and try and find your most favorite, weirdest tree. And once you find that, you can send that using the link that'll be on the poster. So send us your weirdest, coolest trees and have fun learning about trees and enjoying and celebrating them. Happy Arbor Week and see you next time.